Hey guys, I'm here today to let you know about my experience going into the Godsmack show in Toronto. Now, first and foremost, I gotta let you guys know that there's still a bunch of shows left on this tour. Godsmack is having this massive North American tour that features Dorothy and Stone Temple Pilots. Incredible lineup, diverse, versatile, and dare I say, iconic. That I really feel that brings three different styles but three great rock experiences to the table on the same evening. Now, I went to see this tour when they stopped in Toronto. In Toronto, they played at RBC Amphitheatre, that's right by the lake, which is amazing. One of my favorite venues in Toronto. It has a great view of the city. It has a great view of the lake. It's absolutely beautiful. And if you have some special access perks, you can take a boat all the way to the venue from the shores of Toronto. You can get a little bit of a taste of what it means to be on a boat all the way to the venue. Once you get to the venue, perhaps you're hungry, perhaps you're thirsty. What better place to go than the lake house? But if the lake house is not available, what about the MX Lounge? That's exactly where I went for some pre-show dinner and drinks. Had a great time there, really enjoyed myself. I made some reservations because this is not my first rodeo and I don't want to get there and have absolutely no place to sit down to enjoy some food and drinks prior to the show. Now, once the show is about to start, it's time for you to head to your seat. And there's literally no bad seat at RBC Amphitheatre. Unless it's raining and you're in the lawns, then maybe there is a bad seat, but there's no seats in the lawn, so technically even there's no bad seats. Now, I was in the 200 section, which is incredibly close to the pit and gives you an amazing view of everything that's going on stage. Now, this was my first time seeing Dorothy, and I loved it. A very rock and roll, old school, throwback 1970s performance. Not just in terms of the sound and the style of rock and roll that they play, but even the way that the band presents themselves. Not just Dorothy, but the band as well. I enjoyed their performance. I thought it was a very complete performance. They played 8 songs, if I'm not mistaken, and that allowed you to kind of get a feel for what the evening was going to be, which is an evening of rock and roll, and really see what they have to offer and the differences and uniquenesses that they bring to the table when it comes to a live show versus their records. That was the first thing that I noticed. They do take some liberties with their songs. They improvise, if you will, a little bit with their tracks, and I think that adds a different flavor. If I want to listen to songs exactly the way they are on the record, I can always listen to the record. If I want to go see the band live, I want to have a live experience. I want things to be a little bit more organic and not as strict. And then Dorothy definitely performed a performance to my liking when it comes to that. Right after them, the iconic Stone Temple Pilots. Now, I've never seen them live either. This was my first time. There were a lot of Stone Temple Pilots fans in the crowd, and I believe the band put together a performance that definitely did not disappoint. They left some of their most well-known bangers to the later stages of their set list. Nothing new. Most bands do that because they want to keep you connected. They want to keep you engaged with the performance all the way to the end. Nobody wants to play their best songs right at the beginning and then have people go for a drink or some food and the place is empty. So keeping the audience connected, keeping the audience engaged, playing their most famous songs at the end of their set list is definitely what I've come to expect, not just from Stone Temple Pilots, but from every band. They sounded phenomenal. They looked good on stage. A different style performance, obviously, from Dorothy, but a great performance nevertheless, sounding amazing, like really solid and incredibly tight band. I loved every second of it. It was definitely a performance that you just kind of sit back and take it all in. You let the music sink in, and you're almost willing to travel through time when they're playing these songs because they allow you to remember where you were or maybe your youth when some of these songs came out, and that is an important aspect of music, nostalgia. So I connected with that side of me listening to the Stone Temple Pilots, listening to them for the first time live at this show. Then comes the main act, Godsmack. Now, this is my second time seeing Godsmack. I've seen Godsmack part of a festival setting. I believe they played Heavy Montreal in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. It was a long time ago before the pandemic. But when you play at a festival, and you're definitely not a headliner at the festival, your set list tends to be a little bit shorter. So this was my first time seeing Godsmack as a headliner, and there's a lot to be said. First, as far as the set list is concerned, they played 15 songs, 4 of them encore. 15 songs that I don't think you could take any of these songs out of the context of this set list and insert another song that perhaps you would like to hear more. Unless you're a huge fan of the band and there's some deep cuts that you've never heard live that you would love to hear it, then maybe you can have a point there. Outside of that case, that specific case in that specific scenario, if you're a fan of the band, if you're a casual fan of the band, if this was your first time seeing the band because maybe you were there for Stone Temple Pilots, these guys put together a set list that just was simply a chef's kiss. Absolutely perfect. These 15 songs, 14 if I'm going to be precise, and I'll explain why, were exactly what I would expect from them if they were to record a greatest hits. This is what I want to hear. This is the Godsmack that I know, song in and song out. So I love the choices. I love the set list. I love the fact that while all songs were incredibly popular and connected with the discography and history of the band, they still found a way to alternate some more popular ones with some ones that are popular but perhaps not as popular. So this kept the listeners and the audience there incredibly engaged with the experience. Now, a couple of things happened during this show that I thought were really phenomenal. First and foremost, there is a drum battle between Sully Erna and the drummer, Mike Mangini. Now, I wasn't aware that Sully was a drummer, and he had been a drummer before, so that he has an extensive knowledge and ability as far as being a drummer in general. So it was a little bit of a surprise to me seeing him going on stage, which that's why you have Google and ChatGPT, because then you can find out exactly how come he's such a good drummer. Because you know what? He is a phenomenal drummer. Now, to have a drum off competition, and it was not a short one. I'm not talking about like 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 song, 2 song. No, this went on for at least, I'm going to say, and I think I'm being generous here, but went on almost for 10 minutes. Or at least it felt like 10, 30 minutes to me. And it was magnificent. I loved every second of it. The two guys facing each other, drums that rotate around, that move around, giving you different angles, different perspectives of what they can do as drummers, competing against one another, but also at times in complete harmony with one another, playing songs, some of them covers, like Metallica covers, for example, or AC/DC covers. Like, absolutely amazing. Having the guitar player and the bass player complementing the sound experience, so you don't just get drums, you get a more complete sound experience with 2 drummers playing simultaneously. Definitely made this a standout moment of the show. This was before they played Whatever, which was the song that closed their set before the encore. And I was blown away. Definitely one of the highlights of the show, of the performance. Now, before they played Whatever, there was a lot of young kids in the audience. Godsmack has been around for 30 plus years, so they have a massive following, and it's nice to see a lot of this newer audience coming in because they're coming in with their parents who have been fans of the band, some of them for those 30 years. So there's going to be a resurgence of the fan base, or a rebuild of the fan base as far as Godsmack is concerned, with all of these young kids coming in, brought in by their parents to see the show. The band notices that, acknowledges that, brought a bunch of kids on stage. I would say there was maybe 10 kids on stage, different ages, all the way from 3 to probably 12, enjoying a moment that perhaps is going to be one of the greatest moments in their young lives. Something that they can tell not just their friends at school the next day, but they can tell their kids one day, their grandkids, that they were on stage with Godsmack when they played in Toronto. What a night for these kids. I can only imagine how they felt being on stage, looking at the audience, and how they felt going home afterwards. Cloud 9. So Sully, definitely tip my hat to him for having that charisma and understanding of this is how you build a fan base. This is how you connect with a fan base, and this is how you build and ensure that your band moves forward and the fan base doesn't stay behind. So I honestly really love the fact that he brought all of these kids on stage before performing whatever, the song that closed their set once again before the encore. I thought that was a phenomenal moment. Now, the encore had two of my favorite songs of the band, and that is Bulletproof and I Stand Alone, and it also had a Joe Walsh cover. So and Under Your Scars was the other track. So there was a lot of variety to a certain degree, if you will, and then some consistent bangers, with closing off with Bulletproof and I Stand Alone, two of the band's biggest songs ever, at least in my opinion, and two of my favorite songs ever from Godsmack. This really made the experience complete. Their set, even though it's 15 songs, including that drum off, it felt like it went by incredibly quickly. It didn't feel like it dragged on. It didn't feel like I needed to look at my watch and it's time to leave or not time to leave. No, the performance was phenomenal. You were completely immersed in it, and honestly, you wanted to go on forever. But eventually, you have to leave because the show is over. And when the show is over and you got to the venue by boat, you're gonna leave by boat. And that's exactly what I did. I hopped on the little boat, went across the pond, back to the shorelines, back to my car, and back home. Loved the evening, had a great time. It was freaking cold because it's by the lake. I was not expecting that. It got cold quickly, which forced me to spend a boatload of money on a hoodie that I'm never going to wear again because I bought it from my son, who wasn't there with me, but he's a huge Godsmack fan, so I bought him a hoodie. I wore it while I was there, came home, give it to him as a gift, and I think that makes me be a winner all around. Got to see a great show, got to see a different experience, got to see them live headlining for the first time, got to see Dorothy, Stone Temple Pilots, and my son still got a souvenir. He would have been too old to go on stage anyways. He's 22 and perhaps taller than every single person on stage, even if they were sitting on each other's shoulders. So I think he got the best that he could get out of this whole situation, considering that he wasn't there. Alright guys, on the description of this video I have the rest of the tour dates. You can check those out. Go see them. This is a great package, a great tour, 3 great bands. I had a phenomenal time in Toronto. You have a phenomenal time wherever it is that you live, if you have an opportunity to see them, and I'll see you all at the next one.